Welcome back to the channel. If you've clicked on this video, you're probably looking at the differences of 3rd and 2nd edition for Betrayal at House on the Hill. One of my favourite games of all time. I did pick it as my favourite game of all time last year. We'll see later this year if it stayed there. This 3rd edition might help it, as it does add some nice changes just to improve your quality of life whilst playing this game. It's improved on a lot of components, it's added a lot of new stuff. Is this something for you if you played 2nd edition? Let's take a look. If you've played neither, which edition would I suggest? Because who are you gonna ask? Your mum? She has no idea. Let's head to the table and take a look. So if you own both versions of this game, which one is for you? We've got 2nd edition, we've got 3rd edition. Let's break down the bonuses of which. We're going to talk about if you own this game, is it worth upgrading? If you don't own either, which would I go for? But let's get into the video, let's look at the boxes, let's see what you get and compare the two. So inside the 3rd edition, we're going to get this. We're going to get the floors you recognise from the original. They're obviously slightly different, but work generally the same. They're going to have ground, upper and basement, very similar to the first. I will say now, I don't know if you can see that, but these feel slightly weaker almost. These feel a lot sturdier. So that may weigh into your decision, but basically you're gonna get a load of these very similar to the 2nd edition. And then obviously we get our books, we get the rule book, which we will go through. You get the Traitor's Tome, do not read. And obviously the Secrets of Survival, do not read either until the haunt scenario begins. So we will take a look at some of those. Even though it says do not read, I think we're allowed. We will go through all that properly. As well as that, we get our selection of cards, which again is quite a bulky amount, very similar to the 2nd edition. We get all of our dice. I'm actually missing one from the 2nd edition because when I got this game, I was an angsty teenager. So over time, not taking care of my stuff, I have lost one. So it is nice to have the full set again. Then we've got the miniatures. I will do a proper close-up of these. What I do like is the rings. Sometimes it's hard to tell where your character is. I do prefer this than having painted characters. They can easily blend into rooms. This stands out a bit more. So as well as being slightly nicer miniatures, they're also a lot sturdier, stand out a lot more and work better for the game. As well as that, a massive upgrade in this version is the clips. Now these clips are going to go to our characters. So we've got, again, similar cardboard for the characters, but instead of those awful clips, if you never played the 2nd edition, basically the clips just slide on. They didn't hold on very well and ripped the cardboard. They have improved that in this one, which was a big reason for me getting it. Obviously I've had this 10 years now, so there's a lot of wear and tear, but it doesn't look nice. We've taken care of them, we've not sort of pulled them or forced them on or anything, but yeah, just over time, it slowly started to tear away when you move them. We don't have that problem in this edition. We've got nice grooves that they go into, but we'll take a closer look at that as we get them set up. So we've got all of our characters. Again, as in the other edition, we've got double-sided. Obviously, you've got all the tokens, all the traps. Again, a few more characters. And there is the tokens, a lot less than the 2nd edition, which I do actually like. The 2nd edition had literally like 100 tokens, so I do prefer this version. That light is mesmerizing. But that is all the tokens it come with, so that's all the miniatures. Let's take a look at the books and how it compares to the 2nd edition in terms of gameplay. Just for anyone that never had 2nd edition, like I said, very similar. You get the miniatures, they are painted up, they come painted up. You get the dice, you get the tiles, you get the items and stuff, and then the characters as well. This is what I mean about the tokens. Just the sheer amount that there actually is. Obviously, again, just, I think too many. There's too much in there. Obviously, you guys are going to have yours sorted into baggies like I've started with this one. Start as I mean to go on. Like I said, I had this when I was a teenager. And I should have probably tied it up, but I've now got a new edition. So I don't have to. I just wanted to show you briefly through the cards, the items and things you can find as you move around the mansion. I don't want to go through them all because I do think some of the interest is as you reveal them during the game, so I don't want to spoil that. I'll spoil a few though. Just take a look at a couple of them. There's some reference cards which I don't think the original had. Might be something I lost again. But yeah, just a few things that help you enjoy the game a little easier. Some nice, all in all, positive changes. Good looking cards, again, very similar to the originals, but just a ton of fresh stuff to freshen up the game for those players that have already played it, and interesting stuff for those new ones. But let's take a look through the characters. So we've got Dan, we've got Father Warren, we've got Jaden, and Sammy. Again, it's got all the information on Brozef. Oliver, not sure on those characters. We've got Michelle. We've got Brittany, the beatboxer. We've got Anita and Izza. And we've got Persephone and Stephanie. That looks sort of like Laurie Strode from Halloween, so that might be my character. So in this edition, you will notice you can just punch these things out here. And this is where the clips are going to hold on to. We're going to try it out and see how it actually holds. If it's any better than the originals, I'm sure it is. It can't get any worse. You will get a selection of, there's no way I'm going to get this in focus, but 30 like tiny daggers, which are going to be used to clip on. What you're going to do is you're going to pry this apart and then slide it on. There is tiny little grippers that are going to snap onto this and make it easier to move up and down. Hopefully, I am going to try and be careful as I push that on. Else we might end up with a similar situation to the second edition. One of the common issues with the second edition was clips just slide in, so you couldn't really keep track of what was going on. There is none of that in this one. That is locked on there. That is not coming off. It's easy to move up and down to where you need it to. Altogether, just a much better design, something they've clearly worked on, they've clearly refined, and it was much needed for this game, because that was one of my pet peeves with the other one. So I am super happy they've fixed that. But let's take a look at some of the books and some of the rules. One thing I really appreciate, this is the extra effort they've gone to. They know a lot of players are going to be coming over from second edition, people that have played the game and are looking to make the transition. There is a whole page just based on, if you've played before, important changes you should know about, like scenario cards, the reason you're all here. So it adds extra story before you actually get into the game, which was a massive selling point for me. I always love reading out the cards and adding that mystery and that theme and the atmosphere, just building a world as you play through this game. And this has it in spades. It goes on to mention stuff like the haunt roll is different. There are new terms. No stealing allowed, which I quite like. Turns end differently. When the haunt begins, read your setup and introduction text before you leave the room. That was something we did anyway, but I think that's just sort of pointing it out to make sure everyone's doing it, make sure everyone's filling in the blanks. All actions are considered to be open information, and dead explorers leave corpses. Bit of a morbid one to end on, but I like that they sum it all up on that page, so you know exactly what's going to be different. It does seem, in terms of gameplay, it is very similar. There's a few additions to the start of the game and how some mechanics work. But in general, if you've played second edition, you're going to know how to play this. You're going to be able to jump in. Things are going to be new to you. Obviously, there's new rooms. There's new things that happen in those rooms. For example, we've got, when you discover this tile, gain 1 knowledge, which does clean up the text of the original game where it would say, if you end your turn here. It was a little confusing if you got it the first turn or if you would get it later on. Very clear now. It does the same effect. Like I say, it's different things, but it works the same. So you've got to know how it works. You know exactly how to play it if you've played second edition. However, if you haven't, is this one for you? So there is Betrayal. We've hit on a few points of why I think the new edition is so good. It improves on all the miniatures, all the tokens, the clips, the character boards. In general, the art looks slightly more interesting. Even the dice slightly more interesting with that bone colour to them rather than the bright white. The rulebook introduces second players well into the game as well as new players, but it does take a page just to bridge the gap. For most people, they've probably played second and moving into third, but even if you haven't, it's a really concise and I would say slightly better rulebook than the second edition. To answer the question, if you're moving from second to third, do you need this upgrade? No, you don't need it. Especially if you've got the upgrade pack for the original, you don't necessarily need this. If you've played second edition as much as I have, I've had it for 10 years, I've played it God knows how many times now. It's nice to get a refreshed game. It's nice to get the new pieces, the new board, the new characters, and just seeing new stuff when you play the game. So if you've played it a ton, I would say it's worth the upgrade, but it is not necessary. Although going completely against that, I would absolutely recommend it to anyone that has second edition. If you've not played second or third, which one would I go for? definitely third. If for some reason you want second, maybe you've heard the stories of other people playing and you want to live out some of those tales, face some of those haunt rolls, then I would say absolutely, second edition is still great. But if you do, look for the upgrade pack, because the player boards is a massive detriment to the game. Like I showed in the video, mine are just absolutely torn up now, beyond use, some of the characters. But you can make it work. You can get the upgrade pack, there are expansions, so there are ways to build on second edition so you don't need third. Let me know in the comments below, after seeing everything in the box, is it one that interests you? Is it one that you need? Is it one that you're going to go out and get? If you've enjoyed this episode and want to see more stuff around board games, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. That's all I've got for this one though, so I will catch you in the next one.